The people must have wondered, where are the other gods? Soon they would learn. Akhenaten had declared, for the first time in recorded history, that there was only one God. He had turned 2,000 years of Egyptian religion upside down. In the early part of this century, excavators found a large number of carved blocks that had been reused as construction fill in a later Pharaoh's building project. These blocks became known as talatat, from the modern Arabic number for 3, since the blocks all measured about 3 handspans. Over the years, excavators found more than 40,000 blocks. But so many pieces were missing that no one could rebuild the temples. The blocks were kept in storage for the day when someone could come and make sense of them. In 1965, Ray Winfield Smith, an American businessman, conceived the plan to create on paper what couldn't be put together in stone.
0127-14606.
His idea was to photograph every single block, even the ones that had found their way into private collections and museums around the world.
Number 2.
The photographs became pieces in a giant jigsaw puzzle. And with the aid of a computer, Smith's team reconstructed the temples on paper. First, they numbered each block. Then the number and description of each block were entered into a computer. In 1965, this was high-tech. If a piece had the head of a pharaoh looking left, ending at the neck, the computer searched for the blocks that had the body of a king that began at the neck. When the computer found the blocks that were possible joins, Smith retrieved the photographs and fit them together to see if there were a match. When a block was missing, an artist filled in the missing scene. The project continued for 6 years. The computer reconstruction helped Egyptologists figure out what was going on. The shunned boy was now in charge. As pharaoh, Akhenaten could no longer be excluded from the religious festivals, and there were plenty of them. During the Feast of Opet, the statues of the 3 main gods of Thebes, Amun, Mut, and Khonsu, were carried from Karnak Temple to Luxor Temple. The occasion called for days of dancing, singing, and feasting. I've often wondered why Akhenaten changed everything. He was king of Egypt. Why rock the boat? But if we're right about him being a rejected child, it would explain everything. He was like Cinderella. When his brother and sisters were going to religious festivals, he was left at home. And look what he was missing. The greatest show on earth. At night, shaven-headed priests chanted their prayers to placate the gods of Egypt.
I am the father of fathers, the mother of mothers, and the ball of the 7 celestial kine. I open my mouth to speak in the midst of silence. I cause to be that men should have a path on which to tread.
These were wonderful ceremonies that the young Akhenaten was missing. But there's a happy ending, at least for now. Akhenaten becomes king of Egypt. And with his power, he can make everything right. He'll reject the gods of Thebes. They were never his anyway. And he'll have his own private god who loves him, the Aten. And he'll take his new religion and his new god, and he'll leave Thebes and all the childhood suffering. He'll start a new world. The only question is where. The answer to where Akhenaten should begin his new life came in the 5th year of his reign, from the Aten himself. As Akhenaten traveled through a desolate stretch of desert in the middle of Egypt, about 180 miles north of Thebes, the sun rose on the horizon and seemed to rest in a notch in the nearby mountains. The hieroglyph for horizon was the sun resting in a notch of a mountain. The horizon represented the beginning and the end. This was the sign Akhenaten needed to build his field of dreams. The Aten had appeared to him and told him to build his city in the uninhabited desert. He named it Achet Aten, the horizon of the Aten. Akhenaten had boundary markers carved surrounding the site of his new city, telling of his mystical vision.
His Majesty appeared in his great chariot of electrum, like the Aten when he rises in his horizon. Now it is the Aten, my father, who told me to build the city. No official ever advised me to build in this deserted place.
After Akhenaten's revelation to build his city, he led a small group of his followers out of Thebes to the barren desert site that the Aten had chosen, a place now called Amarna. Akhenaten was a cult leader, and this would be his commune. At one of the boundary markers, he assembled the faithful, and as he looked out on the desolate plains where the new city would be built, he held a worship service. It was Akhenaten's Sermon on the Mount.
The great and living Aten, ordaining life, my father, whom no craftsman has devised, who is established in the rising and setting each day ceaselessly. He fills the land with his rays and makes everyone to live.
Akhenaten was no longer alone. He was now married to Nefertiti, one of the most beautiful women in history. Now he had his own family, a wife, 2 daughters, and 4 more to come. The shunned boy had come a long way. There must have been an incredible sense of excitement in the new city. They were pioneers in a brave new religion, and the Pharaoh was their leader. Not until Christianity would a feeling like this happen again. It was a turning point in the history of the world, and Akhenaten was the pivot. But would the rest of Egypt accept the Pharaoh's new religion? The rebel Pharaoh's changes caused a great upheaval, and one man who really got caught in the middle of the religious revolution was Ramosa, the mayor of Thebes. Ramosa had completed 2 walls of his tomb, showing him and his beautiful wife and family in the old traditional style. Everyone is perfect, every curl in place, just the way they wanted for eternity. Then Akhenaten changed everything. Desperate to be politically correct, Ramosa began completing his tomb in the new style, showing Akhenaten and even Ramosa with elongated chin and aquiline nose. People from all over the Middle East bowed down to Akhenaten. Ramosa also showed himself wearing gold collars, perhaps his reward for switching to the new god. Or was it a bribe for keeping up appearances? Old Ramosa died before he could complete his tomb, and the funeral procession that buried him was quickly painted on the wall. Ramosa had 1 foot in the old religion and 1 in the new. You wonder what he thought would happen to him in the next world, or if there would even be a next world. But Ramosa wasn't the only one with questions. The same question was being asked by the priests. What will become of us? If there is but one god, the Aten, what happens to the vast temples of Amun at Thebes? If the Pharaoh no longer believes in the gods, what happens to the thousands of priests? The powerful priesthood of Thebes was furious with Akhenaten. The rebel Pharaoh had declared their gods extinct, deserted the religious capital of Egypt, and vowed never to return. Gone were the royal offerings to the temples. There would be no more donations to the temples of prisoners taken in wars. The resources of Egypt were flowing out of the established cities and into the desert to build the Pharaoh's new city. But it wasn't only the priests who suffered because of the new religion. Think of all the industries that depended on the old religion. Egyptians wore amulets, little figures of the gods for protection. Not anymore. The Egyptian amulet makers who carved scarabs, little beetles with images of the gods and names of the kings, were out of business. The skilled wood carvers who made statues of the gods that adorned Egyptian houses were out of work. What was Akhenaten doing? What was probably even more terrifying to the Egyptians was that Akhenaten was interfering with their afterlife. This is the Book of the Dead. Look over here. There's the deceased. And can you see what he's holding in his hand? It's his heart. The heart was very important to the Egyptians. They believed that you thought with your heart. It makes some sense. When you get excited, it's your heart that beats quickly, not your brain. That's why on Valentine's Day you send chocolate hearts, not chocolate brains. And look over here. These four gods, they're protecting the internal organs of the deceased. You see, the Egyptians were resurrectionists. They believed your body would literally get up and go again in the next world. So you had to have a complete body, including your internal organs. And the journey to the next world, that would be made in a boat. Now, if you look over here at the end of the Book of the Dead, it even provides magical oars for the journey. In a sense, this is a map to the next world. But Akhenaten was throwing out all the old maps. He was writing his own. Before Akhenaten, Egyptian tomb walls showed the next world looking pretty much like this one. The deceased is still working in the fields, but it's better. Now he's got his finest white linen robes